China silk. China silk is about $5 a yard. You can get it from Dharma Trading Company. The cool thing about China silk is when you add a resin to it, it's completely, totally clear unless you dye the silk. If you have white China silk and you put a resin on it, it's clear. I just took the China silk and I stretched it across the framework, put on a very thin resin called Task 9 that you can get from Smooth On. It's about $150 for 2 gallons. It takes about a cup to do all this. You get a lot of wings at $150. The cool thing, I had a lady here earlier ask me if the wings were adjustable. All of the wings that we make completely fold down to your back. Nessa, are you still on the computer? Get over there. Go. Sorry. There was a picture like 1 or 2 ahead of you can see the back of the girl. These wings right here didn't even have acrylic rods. These were 100% molded in a silicone mold. You notice there's a little washer right here. What I do is I put 2 holes in all the wings. One hole is the pivot hole. The other hole is a pinhole. There's a hole in the wing and there's a hole in the harness. You fold the wing up, tighten it down, put in the other pin and that locks it in place. Take out the pin and they fold back down. These wings actually weigh less than a pound each. I think I demoed these last year. Model Athena McNutt. Keep Nessa. Stop counting. There she is. That's kind of a bad angle. These wings are actually, keep going. That's me hooking a model into a harness. They all have that look. It's better than duck face. Keep going. There we go. Same exact principle. You can see how large these wings are. 100% fiberglass. Well, I say fiberglass. I did use a fiberglass cloth on these, coated the resin. Keep going until you get to the ones with the wings being painted on the wall. I think it might have been the other way. Okay, hold on one second. A lady asked me earlier, told me her husband was a welder. Is this lady over here? This is the very first incarnation. And you changed it. There you go. This is the very first incarnation of these wings. We made a wooden jig, and I shaped, I think it was 8-gauge wire on the jigs and just spot welded them together to create the metal frame. I pulled a China silk across it kind of tight and painted on the resin. The cool thing about epoxy resin is it's a glue. So as you're pulling the China silk tight and painting on the resin, you're actually gluing it to the framework. If you want to go double tough, just do a little layer on each side. These wings, once I finished them, I put them on my fence in the backyard because I had no place to store them. They've survived 2 tornadoes, and they're still there. These weigh about 13 pounds a set. Virtually indestructible. The models wore them all day. No one died. Very happy. And this was the very first incarnation. This was the one where they said, can you build fairy wings that are fairy size and not those little bumblebee things you see in cons? I'm like, give it a shot. Okay, next picture. Keep going. Those are also the metal frame wings. Those were actually about 10 pounds. I only used, just, there's a metal rod here, and 2 little ones here. And it's just, when you go into Lowe's, that little, just the roll of wire that you can bend with your hands, whole thing. The resin itself and the fiberglass actually gives the wing its strength. Continue on. Elizabeth, keep going. Stephen Taylor, everyone knows Stephen. He is not a strong man if he can hold a set of these wings with one hand. They're light. Continue on. This was our latest set of wings. This is our Warrior Fairy. Again, 100% molded. We made a large silicone mold. And what I do is when resin starts to cure, it gets to like a jelly stage, right before it finally kicks and goes hard. I take a 2-part mold. I fill each side up. Let the resin get to the point where it's about at that gummy jelly stage. I take a piece of China silk and I stretch it between the 2 and then sandwich the molds back together to where it adheres through the China silk. And you end up with something that's like a tennis racket. And then I just paint a thin layer of color resin on the top of them to give them a little bit of their shine. You can also take the China silk and dye it with plain old RIT dye, and that puts color in the wing when you start. So you can tie-dye your China silk and get all kinds of freaky colors in there if you want to. Just next picture. Next, well, that's me as the orc photo bombing in the back, because I'm the most professional guy in the world at a photo shoot. Okay, keep going. We were talking about earlier, The wings, once you pull the hitch pin, I left this unphotoshopped so you can see it. Red's probably hating it. She always photoshops this stuff out. See, when they're pulling out the pin, the wings fold completely down. So when you're walking through a con, or if you want to get your picture made in several different poses, the wings will actually pose in 4 or 5 different locations. And these, again, a couple of pounds apiece. Keep going. Keep going. Oh, by the way, fun little picture. These two got married. He was an orc at the photo shoot. She was a fairy. This was their wedding invitation. Keep going. How did all these pictures of me and getting up in there? You made the drive.
I just dropped and dragged. I don't know what else is on there.
You all may be learning a lot in the next few minutes. Keep going.
Dropped and dragged. I wound up pregnant.
Well, yes, sir. Question? Did we have a question? Oh, no, he's just standing there. Okay, keep going. All right, there we go. Original set of wings. All we've done here is we've taken the metal framework and we've just pulled the China silk across it tight. At this point, get a chip brush from Harbor Freight. They're like a 25 cents a piece. Take a resin that takes a little while to set. Task 9 usually takes about 15, 20 minutes, 20-minute pot life. The originals, when I say pot life, that's how long it's still liquid in the dish. This was actually something called Tarbender, which you can also get from Smooth On. It's a clear resin used for encapsulating things. I mean, like if you had when you see those great little glass trinkets that have seashells and stuff dropped inside of them, that's encapsulating stuff in resin. This was an encapsulating resin. It's very hard. It takes about 12 hours to set completely. So I had plenty of time to sit there and just paint the resin out onto the wings. One more. That's us. We colored the resin on these and put a coat of yellow on there. The black that's in there is actually the color of the steel rods that were in there. We did this on a flat surface. Got a completely cool flat wing. This, again, entire thing. A full set of wings is what, 12 pounds maybe? Yeah. Yes, ma'am. Okay, good question. But no, yeah, I need you to go to Mike. Okay, anyway, let me go ahead and answer that one. When we talked about, in some of our panels before, about the use of a release when molding, if it's a porous substance, it'll absorb. If it's a non-porous substance, it won't absorb. So we just put this on a non-porous surface, in this case tinfoil, and we put a very thin layer of wax, like floor wax, over the top of that. Wax is water retardant, therefore resin retardant. So we can actually take the resin, paint it flat inside this, and it'll release straight up off the table. Okay? Yes, ma'am.
You said you were pulling the China silk tight. Do you
Uh-huh.
have to like actually clip it on? So you said, do I have to like actually clip it onto the frame?
I use clothespins to hold it to the frame. The cool thing is, I will tell you this because a mistake was made in the process. Plastic clothespins, not wooden clothespins. A person who shall remain nameless was helping me with these wings, and I said, just clip them with clothespins, I'll be right back. I came back and she had used wooden clothespins all the way around, so we have a wing that has little tiny bits of wooden clothespins permanently stuck on the edge of the wings. Okay, keep going. As we started getting good with this, we realized we didn't have to use a flat surface. We started taking the clothespins and just pinning them to the top and painting clear resin on there. This set, keep going. You're gone. Keep going, that's just me making wings. Still just me making wings. For the record, if you're using any other kind of resin other than epoxy resin, do it outside. This was epoxy resin, but it was messing all over the floor, so we did it outside anyway. One of the things we learned the hard way, that if the weather is lower than 70 degrees, your resin is not going to set right away. I mean, there was a lot of cussing, a lot of yelling when I came out and I touched the wings and they were still tacky. Finally, smarter people than me said, just walk away. Came back, and they were hard. Okay, keep going. Good, keep going. This was just us. When we say pot life, that's how long it's still Hot life is how long it's going to be liquid. Cure time is how long it's going to take before it's completely, totally solid. We let these things cure overnight, so we just let them hang on a clothesline. And the next day they were glass. I mean, literally, you can knock on them and they're glass. We do a lot of we can make these things look like stained glass windows if we need to. Yes, question?
So for those who are actually new to making any wings, using gears and a lot of resins that you've never used before may be intimidating. What are some examples that anyone will use that are maybe a little cheaper that they can practice?
I love if you're trying to make an angel wing or like a bird wing, and Leah can probably chime in on this one. I love using craft foam. I use a thicker craft foam toward what we call the muscle of the wing, and thinner craft foam as you get out toward the tips. Craft foam and wire work really, really well together. The cool thing with craft foam is once you've drawn out your pattern, put wire in between 2 layers of craft foam. Leave them on either side. It hides your wire all together. And if your craft foam is in there and you use a good glue like a barge or a good rubber cement to hold the two of them together, you can actually use the craft foam to angle your wings and bend them into different positions.
I'm a big fan of wooden dowels.
Of course.
I actually love that question because he's very much, the brainiac of our little expose.
You all heard that.
I'll never say it again. No, he's brilliant, knows what he's doing. But before we ever started making wings a couple years ago, I was interested in the idea of making some expandable wings. And I don't have access, I didn't have the access or knowledge other than YouTube, and I don't need to play with power tools or weapon. So I wanted wings that expanded and contracted, and I actually have made 2 different pairs out of 2 different things without going with like a linear actuator, or any sort of power.
I would love to see a pair of wings made with a linear actuator because that's
There was
what
one
they use
at
on
the-
roller coasters.
Costume contest Friday night.
Yeah, we actually had a really great pair at the costume contest. They had a little battery issue and they caught on fire during the judging.
Was it? I'll ask later.
But what I was going to say is, and this is very much a novice path to do, but it worked great for me, and I loved it. And I was in one of the Dragon Con competitions years ago with it. But one of my methods was I took a baby stroller, and when you expand and contract them, they go different ways, and it's already made. And that's a great thing to do with foam if you want something that's immediately adjustable. And then also like Baby Gate or the laundry, things that you fold out, those are all made to expand and contract. And so for those of you wanting just to play with foam and learn your material, to make wings that expand and contract, those are just 2 very simple, very accessible things. So
I will also tell you that if you're looking to make angel wings, the problem most people have with angel wings are the small feathers, the downy looking feathers. An old theater trick is we take long pile fur, like the Halloween fake fur, the stuff that's good and long, put it along the top edge of your wing, and then take a wash of Elmer's glue and water, and take a comb and comb the fur. When you comb the fur, it looks exactly like downy feathers, and it blends right in with the feathers. The larger feathers are already there, indistinguishable from downy feathers at 3 feet, and $6 at Joann's. Any more questions? Yes, ma'am?
Question and follow-up to the Chief Intro to Wings question. I attempted to make my first pair of wings this year and it stuck at the harness. I made mine out of PVC pipe and duct tape and resin.
Okay.
And it was really cheap and really easy and the wings look cool. But I got stuck at the harness and I'm having a lot of difficulty with attachment, and a lot of what I found on YouTube was incredibly uncomfortable. Not anything I would want to do.
Really comfortable. And what I do is I start with a leather harness. It's pretty much a leather triangle that goes on your back with the bottom slipped off. On all of these wings, I don't know if you can see it here, so I haven't put them on there yet. Would you just move forward or move back several to where you can see the girl's back? Keep going. Keep going. It's like the one with the red head with the, yeah, there you go. This one. Right here. Okay. Bring that one up big for me. All right, really difficult to tell, but there's a leather triangle of fabric, and then a leather piece right here. And what I did was I made two little slits, kind of like when you're boning a corset. You have a piece of bone casing you slide your bones down inside of. Thank you, you're out. I put a little tab here and a little pocket at the bottom, and I just let those two little bones slide down between the two pieces of leather. What that does is it secures it all the way down the back, and then the wings are attached here at the top. Now, for this, I did have to weld aluminum together at a little bar in two little places, but if you don't want to weld, L brackets will do the exact same thing. Just L bracket here, and one little piece to combine the two of them. The holes are already pre-drilled for you to put your wings in. If they're very, very large wings and you don't need to make them posable, I would recommend connecting them here and then slightly lower down here to take the weight off of them. I'd love to see pictures of your wings when you get them finished. If you want to post those to anybody and everybody, if you post something cool, or if you take information you got here and you make something, please friend the DragonCon costuming track on Facebook, and feel free to post your pictures. We'd love to see what you guys make based off what we teach you, okay?
Thank you.
Yeah, because who knows, you might have the next genius idea.
And we will steal it.
He means borrow.
So on the subject of retractable wings, is there any material that would be fairly reliable other than that really expensive aluminum that would work?
Define reliable.
Well, I'm going to jump in here real quick. We made a second wing. I did a Queen Angela from Masters of the Universe, the He-Man She-Ra thing last year. We made giant, what was I, Jenna, like 9 feet across, angel wings out of crutches from Goodwill. Crutches and more of those wooden dowels I'm in love with. My entire set of wings was crutches, dowels, duct tape, and cotton.
I love aluminum flat bar. I mean, you can buy it for $6 for about 7 feet. You can get it a 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch. It's easy to cut, it's easy to shape with a grinder, and it's easy to drill.
Yeah, the only reason we did the water jet cut aluminum is we needed those weird shapes.
I meant like different materials for the gears.
The problem is when you find ready-made gears, they're usually made out of steel and quite heavy. Wooden gears are not reliable at all because they wear down over time, if not just have teeth break off. So I don't know if they're...
I have a pattern back at the house. I didn't bring it with me, but it's 5 flat pieces of board. The entire thing articulates with a string. If you will friend the DragonCon costuming track, I will post a tutorial on there on how to put it together. The entire thing can be built in an afternoon. 2 pieces of string at about 10 feet from tip to tip. The whole thing's going to weigh about 8 pounds. And you can build the entire thing out of.
Let's do it.
Matter of fact, our technical director was here today, and he's the one that showed me how to make them. I'll make him make a tutorial and post it for you.
Way to delegate.
Thank you.
Sure. Say you told me you would do this in the wing panel, you jerk. Please post it in the title, and I'll make sure it gets on there. Yes, ma'am.
Alright, I've made fold-out angel wings out of feathers, and my question is, what is the lighter than fabric glue? Because that worked really well for, I did a layer of feathers in the front and the back, but it was heavy. I mean, it was doable, but I would rather it be lighter. They were this big.
The feathers were that big, or the wings were that big?
The wings were this big. The biggest feather I had was turkey wings.
So about 12 inches.
Yeah,
Okay. Lighter than fabric glue.
that's what we really.
Stitching. Stitching is one of the best ways to go. I mean, if you do a good stitch, it's going to stay in there forever. I love craft foam. If you want lighter wings, I'd stay away from real feathers and use craft foam and texture them.
Okay, I have a follow-up question for the feathers. There was a movie in the 80s, I don't remember what it's called, but there was a woman who had big wings, and I read that was actually silk feathers that they bought from a flower shop.
Okay, this is a process. Thank you. China silk. Okay, you're gonna make my brain hurt here. What you do is you take 2 pieces of China silk and you cut them into basically the shape of your feather, and you put a wire up the middle of them. Then you put, you can either use, don't take me when I can't remember words. You pause that. No, it's freight check. You can do a little freight check in the middle, or you can do a very light stay stitch, and then you let the edges unfurl. It becomes what looks, it's almost indistinguishable from a peacock, not from a peacock, from an ostrich plume at that point. And they are posable and they are easy to work with. A lot of people, when they're doing big theatrical hats that have to do styled feathers, will make them that way. And it's also great when you're making a set of wings because you have wire coming out of each one of them that you can connect and twist together. And China silk's like $5 a yard.
That's great. I never thought you could buy this silk and make it yourself. I thought I'd have to order from a flower shop, maybe
Dharma Trading Company will sell you any weight of China silk you want.
Dharma Trading Company.
DHRMA.
DHRMA.
Why do you ask? You tell me what to do all the time.
It's so true. On that question, your infrastructure and the strength of it is important. If you don't have the strength in your structure, it's not going to support whatever you put on it. And I know this because those ice wings that were up there, the pattern I designed, he looked at me like 5 times and he was like, they're going to fall. They're going to break. I was like, just make them. Just make them. And he actually wound up making them way smaller than I really wanted them. And those wings still, I mean, it was all the resin acrylic, or the acrylic rods with the resin over them. And he made me add extra support bars to them and everything, and I rolled my eyes. I was like, whatever. When we got them on the model, I mean, I saw how much I was like, you've got to be really careful. A bee came at her one time. She's like, it's going to sting me. I was like, get stung, don't move, you know? But it's because the frame structure needed the strength, and that China silk and the resin is, I mean, you heard how light it was, and those acrylic rods still supported it, but they were large, and the resin and the China silk, even though it's light, the structure had to be able to support it. So make sure that that's an issue too.
When you're doing something like that, if you're doing the framework, all you have to do is, much like here, this is just me taking the resin rod framework and painting in layers of resin. I lay this out flat, and when you flip this over, if you've got China silk on this side, once you flip it over, each side, each one of these things then becomes a pocket, a little empty space. I fill these layers here up with resin on the other side. So this part in here becomes considerably thicker than this part over here, which gives me that structure I need in the bottom. So make them on one side, flip them over, and now you've got like what looks like little flat cereal bowls. And I just pour a little resin in each one of them. It's a lot like just filling a bowl with milk. Fill them up to about the top of the this part in here is roughly twice as thick, and the more weight you put toward the model's body, the more stable the wings are going to be. Okay, next question, ma'am.
Have you ever used a backpack frame to
Yes,
hold
ma'am.
them?
Military backpacks are what they call
Alice Pack.
Alice pack, or I think some places call them Yukon backpacks. They're aluminum.
Alice Pack.
Or I think I buy them for like $10 off eBay. They are amazing. Lightweight. They're made to strap across you. When you are strapping something to yourself, by the way, just around the arms kind of sucks. Do a crisscross pattern. That way, more of your body holds the weight. The more places that strap is going to touch, the stronger it's going to be and the more secure it's going to be to your back. So those military backpacks, amazing. I recreated something like that out of aluminum, just smaller. But, crisscross your straps and make it not uncomfortably tight, but a good firm fit to you. I go strap here, and then usually one across right here. And I will take China silk and like little decorative bits and actually make it part of like fairy outfits. There just looks like it becomes their top. One strap here and then a crisscross here actually becomes a nice little bikini top. Right, next question.
As far as the feathers, I'm looking to make something that's waterproof, durable, and not see-through, that looks as close to real feathers as possible. They're going to be between that big and that big, but I need something that's not, breakable, and also I didn't want to use real feathers because it kind of looks matted or unnatural.
You
What
could.
other?
I would still go with real feathers. The matted and unnatural things can be fixed by with that fur technique I was showing you earlier. Just taking little bits of the fur and just kind of combing it in, just to fill in like your little gaps and stuff. The big thing, there's a company in Florida. If you just do a search for feathers on the internet, they're going to sell them to you by the pound. Find you a company. I can't recommend any particular one to you right now, but find a company that's going to sell you left and right feathers. Because when you buy a feather, they have a shape to them. There are very few that are just perfectly straight. You need a company that's going to sell you left feathers and right feathers. They're a little more expensive, but when you put them together, it saves you a lot of work. Because I've ordered 2 pounds of feathers, which a pound doesn't sound like a lot. When you're talking about feathers, you're talking about a ton. 2 pounds of feathers, and they were all left wing, and I couldn't do a damn thing with them on the right.
The project I'm doing is actually a little more stylized, and I wanted to airbrush the what looked like the feathers and what you said, like the wire through for the pinion. What other materials besides China silk would you use for the
If I'm really wanting something realistic, I do like craft foam, and putting wire between 2 layers of very thin craft foam. You can take a Dremel, or if you have a proper respiration, you can take a soldering tool or something and texture the craft foam itself, and it is paintable. I mean, if you're wanting something that looks fairly realistic at a distance. Up close, it's still going to look like craft foam. Not a whole lot I can do about that. But if you want something that's going to last forever and be indestructible, you're going to go with wired craft foam.
All right, thank you.
Sure. Everybody get that? Rainbow Feathers. It's the name of a feather distributor who will give you left and right feathers. What's your name? Everybody say thank you, Jillian.
Thank you, Jillian.
Thank you, Jillian. Yes, ma'am.
So for a custom I want to make, it's Kerrigan from StarCraft, and so the wings for her will come more from waist level, and they're huge, and I'm wondering how to support all that weight when you can't support it on the shoulders at all.
Just because the wings come out of your waist does not mean the support has to solely be in your waist. Go ahead and let the support go up your back, and do the crisscross pattern. I mean, your weight's going to be located a little more central, but you want the straps and the support to cover as much of you as humanly possible. Yeah, I'm not 100% familiar with that character, but I believe she does have armor.
Sort of.
If you're working with armor, you can actually go into a heavier type of support. I mean, you can do pretty much any strap configuration you want, put a breastplate over it, no one's ever going to see it. And the armor on the front actually helps balance the weight that's on the back. So yeah, just even though your connection points are back here, go ahead and take the support up your back.
Thank you.
This one. Hi.
Hello. If you're really new to this sort of thing and you've never done anything like this before, what would you recommend as a good beginner project to kind of learn ways of making this before bringing it in?
I would probably say foam wings, because the craft supplies you can pick up anywhere. I mean, you go to Michael's and buy the big sheets. And the great thing, thank you. The great thing about craft foam is a problem I see with a lot of people who make craft wings is they cut a silhouette out of a wing, and that's what they call their wing. Do layers of foam. Do your big feathers in one layer. Do your middle feathers, your secondary flight feathers, another layer, and then do the supports at the top, the thicker parts, in another layer of foam. It's still only going to be about 1/4 of an inch thick when you are done, but people see things in layers. When you look at them in real life, you see things in layers. The more layers you have, the more realistic it's going to look.